House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 5 hands us a scene that should feel warm. A mother reunited with her child after months apart. Instead, it feels like watching someone brace for a blow they know is coming. And by the end of this breakdown, you'll understand exactly why Rhaenyra is pulling away from Joffrey Valerian, what his fate might actually be if the show follows George R.R. Martin's history, and why a gruesome murder mystery unfolding in the streets of King's Landing might be the real reason her reign is already crumbling. If you know anything about Rhaenyra Targaryen, you know that's not who she is. So why is the woman who fought a war to protect her children suddenly acting like a stranger to her own son? Let's start with the boy nobody's talking about enough. Joffrey Valerian was shipped off to the Vale back in Season 2, a decision that gutted Rhaenyra even as she made it. Now, with Jacaerys dead in the Battle of the Gullet and Lucerys killed seasons earlier, Joffrey isn't just her youngest son anymore. He's her heir, the next in line for the Iron Throne. You'd expect the Queen to sprint to his side the moment he's back within the walls of the Red Keep. Instead, she tells her people she'll greet him later. And when later finally comes, all she can manage is a look through a doorway at a child who's already asleep. That coldness isn't an accident, and it isn't bad writing. It's Rhaenyra fully understanding what her crown has already cost her and what it might still take. Because right now her kingdom is falling apart in every direction. The treasury is empty. The small folk are starving in a city that just changed hands. Aemond and Aegon are both still out there, unaccounted for, each one a walking threat with a dragon or a claim to the throne. And in Tumbleton, Orland Hightower is quietly building an entire movement around Rhaenyra's younger brother Daeron, positioning him as a purer, more legitimate king. When you add it all up, the odds that Joffrey survives long enough to inherit anything start to look grim. Rhaenyra can feel that. And putting distance between herself and her son might be the only way she knows how to survive losing him if it comes to that. There's something else going on beneath the surface too, something almost superstitious. Daemon has already accused her of chasing omens that don't exist, and he's not entirely wrong. Rhaenyra has started reading meaning into every tragedy, every death, every bad piece of news. Joffrey is her last living child by Sir Harwin Strong, a man she loved outside the bounds of her marriage, and the last visible reminder of a truth the realm was never supposed to know. Jace and Luke are gone. Is it possible Rhaenyra has started to wonder, somewhere in the quiet parts of her mind, whether the gods are punishing her for the lie her children were born into? Whether a bastard was never meant to sit that close to the Iron Throne in the first place? Here's the uncomfortable part. If House of the Dragon follows the version of events written in Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra's fear isn't paranoia, it's foresight. In Martin's book, an uprising eventually reaches the dragon pit itself. And Joffrey, terrified for his young dragon Tyraxes, begs his mother to let him go protect it. She refuses. He goes anyway. And in a moment that echoes his brother's fatal mistake with Vermithor, Joffrey climbs onto Syrax, a dragon that was never his, that never bonded with him. Dragons do not forgive that kind of overreach. He's thrown from the sky and crashes into the streets of Flea Bottom, his back broken, and he dies in the arms of a stranger, a candlemaker's daughter, whispering an apology to a mother who isn't there to hear it. Afterward, the mob that killed him strips his body for anything of value, down to the rings on his severed hands. If that's where this story is headed, then every ounce of emotional distance Rhaenyra is building right now won't spare her an ounce of pain when it happens. It might actually make it worse, because she'll have to live with the fact that she chose to keep herself away from him in what could be his final months. And here's a question worth sitting with. Is Rhaenyra protecting herself from grief? Or is she quietly preparing to lose him, the way a soldier steels themselves before a battle they already expect to lose? Now, whether the show keeps that exact ending is genuinely uncertain, and that uncertainty matters. House of the Dragon has already proven it's willing to deviate from Fire and Blood, and it does so for a specific reason. Martin's book is written like a history text, pieced together from unreliable accounts, gaps, and rumors. The show exists partly to fill in what the historians never saw. Alicent's secret visit to Rhaenyra at Dragonstone is a perfect example, a private conversation no maester could have possibly recorded. So when the show adds new material, it's not necessarily rewriting the ending, it's revealing the parts of the story the official record missed. And that brings us to the real gut punch of Episode 5, the killings. 2 gold cloaks turn up dead in Flea Bottom, throats and stomachs opened, no witnesses despite it happening in broad daylight. Daemon is furious, and immediately assumes the small folk are retaliating against Rhaenyra's crackdown on the graffiti, calling her the, quote, Queen of Bastards. That theory tracks with the books too. In Fire and Blood, rising taxes and brutal policing genuinely do spark an uprising that eventually chases Rhaenyra out of King's Landing after only half a year on the throne. But the show adds a piece Martin's history never captured, a hooded figure orchestrating it all from a distance. That figure is Orland Hightower, and this is where the episode stops being a political drama and starts feeling like a psychological thriller. Ormond isn't just supporting Daeron's claim from Tumbleton. He has agents embedded inside King's Landing itself, feeding him information, executing a plan designed to make Rhaenyra look weak and cruel without Ormond ever lifting a sword. He even tells Daeron a story about Maria Martell, a ruler who refused to bow to Targaryen dragons and instead fought back with poison, sabotage, and quiet, brutal cunning. Ormond isn't hiding his strategy, he's teaching it to his heir apparent in real time. He knows he can't beat a dragon in open combat, so he's decided to burn Rhaenyra's rule down from the inside instead. The episode's final image drives that point home in the most disturbing way possible. Daemon walks into the City Watch headquarters to find 9 of his men slaughtered and staged like a nightmare version of a dinner party, propped up around a table, their own bodies used as the centerpiece. Above them, written in blood, a feast for traitors. It's a direct message aimed at the men who abandoned Aegon's side and let Rhaenyra reclaim the city. And it's Ormond telling everyone, without saying a single word himself, that no one loyal to the Blacks is safe, not even inside their own walls. Here's what makes this so devastating for Rhaenyra specifically. In the books, her downfall is largely her own doing. Paranoia, harsh punishments, a queen turning on the people she's supposed to protect. But this new layer changes the moral math entirely. Rhaenyra is still making questionable calls, but she's not spiraling into cruelty on her own. She's being deliberately provoked, manipulated, and set up to look like a tyrant by an enemy she doesn't fully see yet. Doesn't that change how we should feel about her mistakes? If someone is engineering your paranoia from the shadows, meanwhile, across the Red Keep, Alicent and Helaena are living their own version of that same trapped desperation. With Helaena pregnant again and refusing to end it, Alicent scrambles to get them both out of the castle before Rhaenyra can use the child against them. They stumble onto a hidden passage right next to their own bed, and for one hopeful moment, it looks like freedom. Then the path dead ends, their only light goes out, and the secret door seals behind them, unable to be opened from the inside. 2 queens, quite literally buried alive inside the walls of the very palace they once ruled. It's a detail with no basis in Fire and Blood at all, which means the show is building towards something entirely its own, and given that Helena's death is already faded in the histories, this claustrophobic nightmare might be the exact moment that pushes her toward it. Every thread in this episode is quietly tightening the same noose. Rhaenyra is emotionally retreating from her last surviving son, right as his position becomes most dangerous. Her enemies inside the city are being manipulated by a man she doesn't even know is pulling the strings yet. And in the Red Keep's own walls, her greatest rival is trapped in literal darkness, waiting to see if she'll emerge as a threat or a tragedy. With only 3 episodes left, none of these threads look like they're heading anywhere gentle. So here's the real question we're sitting with. If Rhaenyra's downfall isn't purely her own making, if it's Ormond pulling the strings the entire time, does that make her more sympathetic? Or does it just mean the throne was always going to break her one way or another? Let me know what you think in the comments. Whatever happens next, one thing already feels certain. Rhaenyra didn't distance herself from Joffrey because she stopped loving him. She did it because loving him too closely might be the one thing she can't survive losing again. And that quiet, aching restraint might end up being the most heartbreaking choice she makes all season. If this breakdown helped make sense of what's really happening beneath the surface of House of the Dragon, hit like, subscribe for more deep dives every episode, and share it with a fellow fan who needs to see this.